So they reached the destination, and when they entered the Rebbe's home, so they found out the custom was that they have to write down what their request is and hand it to the Rebbe's attendant. The Rebbe's attendant brings it into the Rebbe, and returns a response. So this is what they did, but a problem occurred. Something occurred when the attendant emerged from the Rebbe's room, and the women got mixed up, and each one received the answer that was intended for the other. That is, the woman whose husband was suffering was critically ill, was seriously ill. So she received a response intended for the husband who was in dire financial straits. That is, may the Almighty help you and save you. Well, the woman whose husband was in dire financial straits received the answer intended for the husband who was seriously sick, and that was the Rebbe's advice was to do benkes. To do benkes. Benkes was a common medical treatment then that involved the application of a certain kind of leeches and of heated glass cups in order to drain the bad blood that was causing the illness and to generate new healthy blood. She couldn't understand this answer. What does this medical treatment have to do with her husband's financial situation? But in her innocence and absolute faith in the Rebbe, she took it at face value and didn't even consider the possibility of a mix-up. When she arrived home and the husband asked her what the Rebbe had said, she said, a segula, a propitious thing to do for good luck. You should do benkes. He was astonished and he was upset. And he laughed. Hey, what kind of nonsense to go through this painful treatment as a segula for financial salvation. But he did have to admit that perhaps a silly idea is better than no idea, and he had no idea. And when the last day of the week was up, and he still had no idea and no money, so his wife insisted that he do it because what else was there to do? So he agreed. And maybe in some way this would hold off the landlord and his violent henchmen for a while. So he did the treatment. He applied the leeches and the cups to different places of his body, and pretty soon blood was streaming out from all over him. Very shortly after that, two of the henchmen of the landlord showed up to threaten him with dire consequences if he didn't pay up by the end of the day, and to perhaps give him a sample of what was in store for him. And they warned him, but he didn't. He simply lay there and he didn't say anything. So they saw him lying there with blood streaming out of him. They didn't know what to do. What was the point of going in and trying to beat him? So they went back to the landlord and told him that this guy looks. He's lying in his bed. He's bleeding from all over his body. It could be he's going to die. I don't know. But the landlord, the nobleman, he couldn't believe it. He had seen him just the other day. He seemed to be in perfect health. So he said, "Bring him to me." But they said, we doubt that he can walk. So he said, "Okay, take as many people as you need and bring him in his bed." So they did so. They went and they took the man on his bed into the front door of the mansion, and the messenger, the guard in charge, went up to tell the landlord that the Jew was here, and the others dispersed to wherever they went to. And so there he was alone near the door, and at that moment the nobleman's wife, the landlord's wife, stepped out, and she saw him bleeding from all of these injuries all over his bodies, and she screamed, my poor man, what happened to you?" And at that moment, he was struck with an inspiration. And he said, "I was under so much pressure to pay my debt to your husband that yesterday I decided to go into town and try to borrow the money. And I had to go from door to door to everyone I knew. And it took all day and all my energy. And finally, I did it. I managed to collect the required sum. But by then it was too late to hire a wagon to return home. None were available. I had no choice. I was forced to walk home in the dark. Well, my bad luck was still with me. I was set upon by a vicious band of robbers. They took all the money I had collected, and they left me penniless with a whole bunch of new debts, and they beat me to within an inch of my life. So as you see, it's only because of God's mercy that I'm still alive. She was shocked. When her husband came downstairs and appeared a few minutes later, she spoke to him very strongly. She said, "You see this poor man? He's practically dying, and we are responsible. And it's all because you put so much pressure on him for the lease money. You must forgive his debt immediately." The landlord could see that he would have problems if he didn't comply. She was beside herself, and it was from her family that came much of his wealth. So he agreed. He told the tenant he would cancel the debt, and that the landlord, would be responsible for all the medical costs. That's not enough, said his wife. He has a new set of debts because of us too, so you have to let him have the tavern rent-free for 3 years in order that he should be able to amass the money to pay off all the debts for the money that was robbed from him. The nobleman gulped. This was difficult to swallow, but finally he agreed. We know the story from the Rizhiner Rebbe himself. That is, we know the story from the Rizhiner Rebbe told the story to Rabbi Aaron to the Rebbe of Karlin, his relative by marriage, and he emphasized that when he received the note about the innkeeper's debts, he didn't see any opening in heaven that would give him any ability to be able to help him. That it was only because of this woman's great faith in what she heard, what she thought was the answer, that enabled her husband to be saved. Yaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdoi. Now, I think I'm obligated to add because I know everybody is going to ask the same question. What happened to this man that was sick and received a blessing? Everything, God should help you. Well, I hope he recovered, but the truth is this outcome is not mentioned in any of the versions of the stories that I have encountered. But we have to assume that God indeed did help him, and he did get well. And indeed, we should all be well, have a healthy and prosperous and inspirational year 5782.